All right, we'll go ahead and get started then. If anybody has any questions along the way, please let me know. And we'll talk about shoes for a little bit. I'll go over the workouts for this week and then open up to any general running camp related questions, anything that I can help with. All right, so the best running shoes are the ones you will wear. I think this, really says a lot that we get really caught up in what is the upper made of, what is the shoe made out of, who makes the shoe, what color is it, all these other fancy things that can go into shoes now with so much shoe tech going on and so many advancements. But the number one thing I tell people to look for when they're looking for new shoes or trying different shoes is find a shoe that you will wear and that is comfortable. That should be the number one goal whenever you get running shoes. And we'll go over some other things to look for, but that's the one thing to keep in mind. If you're at running zone, you're like, I don't know if this shoe feels right. You're going to take it home and you're not going to wear it if it doesn't feel good in the store. All right, so here's some general shoe guidelines. So will you wear them, like I was just speaking to? Are they comfortable, which ties into will you wear them? You're also looking for no drastic change in heel to toe drop, and we'll go over this a little more in detail. But what that is if your heel's here and your toes here, most shoes have a little bit of an offset where your heel is sitting higher than your toe. Of course, there's some like Altras and things where in the old, Vibrams, where you're at a zero drop and they're exactly even. It would be like if you were barefoot. But a lot of them are more in that 6, 8, 10, even 12 millimeter offset, where that's how much higher your heel sits from your toes. So if you're, look up before you go to try to change shoes at all, what yours is, because what happens if you're sitting in a 10 or a 12 up here, and I'm accentuating it, and you come down to like a 2 or a 4, that heel's coming down significantly, and that's going to put more stress on your calf and your Achilles down here at this end. And you might be okay, but I think that's an unnecessary risk of that could affect your calf, your Achilles. You could develop like an Achilles tendonitis, either where it inserts or just above it. So just something to look for when you're trying to change shoes. And if you really like that shoe that's down there at a 4, I would just go from like, a 10 to an 8 or 6 and then down to a 4. So just gradually come down there if you really are interested in getting to that lower heel to toe drop. Also, try the shoes on with socks. They're going to fit very differently to have socks on versus not having socks on, and also socks that you wear on a daily basis. If you have a pair of like features like a medium or low profile, try it on with that. I know places like Running Zone will have try on socks. Some of them tend to be thicker. They tend to be, some come higher. There's a whole bunch of different styles. Wear them, try them on with a pair of socks that you're going to be running in, so you know exactly how they're going to fit, because they're going to fit a little differently depending on the socks that you wear. General rule of thumb is shoes are going to last from about 300 to 500 miles max. So if you're at like 600, 700, 800 miles in your shoes, you probably want to look into getting another pair of shoes. This is one of the number one things that I see people in the office for when injuries pop up, little aches and pains, little niggles pop up, is that they just wore their shoes for too long and weren't paying attention to how long they had them for. So there's Strava, you can track them, Garmin Connect, you can track them. There's tons of different apps where you can put in which shoe you're wearing. It'll track the mileage so you can keep track of it. What I'll do, and these aren't my running shoes, but I'll put the date back here of the first day I started running in those shoes. And then I keep a training log so I can go back, and usually I'm very consistent with my mileage. Let's say if you're running, 50 miles a week, you know that you're going through 200 miles a month, and it's going to be about a month and a half to 2 months before you need to change out your shoes. So if you look at this and you're looking at like 10 weeks, then you'd have to get a new pair of shoes. So you can kind of figure that out based on how many miles you're running a week and when you got the shoes. So that's another way to keep track of it. Also, you can rotate between shoes. I don't think you have to rotate between shoes, but we'll go over some different types of shoes, or even the same shoe model rotating through that. If you have different colors of the same like training shoe, you can rotate through. And we'll go through if you want to wear a different shoe for like a speed work day versus a long run day, easy run day, etc. But I don't think you necessarily have to. It's not that the shoes like we cover in between, like has been said before. If it's rainy or something, you're going to want to let them dry out and not compress the foam too much. But just on a regular basis where it's dry outside, your shoes don't need recovery time from yesterday to today. Okay, what impacts how long shoes last? Because that is a range, and even the same pair of shoe may last differently between you and between myself. So weather's going to be a big one. If you're constantly running in the rain, we don't get snow here, then that's going to wear your shoes down a bit more. It just causes that foam to get compressed a little bit more, and wears them out quicker. Your sweat rate, same thing. You're just drenching them. So in the summer here, your shoes might not last as long as in the winter. If they're getting soaked with every run, you're just tearing up everything that makes up that shoe a bit faster. If you're wearing a multi-purpose shoe, if you use your running shoes as a multi-purpose shoe, it's going to wear out a bit quicker. So if you go to the gym in that shoe, if you go to work in that shoe, if you're walking around in that shoe, it's going to wear it down quicker. I would encourage you to have a pair of shoes that is just for running. Running shoes, just how, the anatomy of the shoe and how they're built is different than a walking shoe or anything like that. And that's why, I wear this lifestyle shoe in here. It's what feels best on my foot. My running shoes actually don't feel great if I'm in here all day or if I'm walking around. So to get your running shoes to last longer, I would stick to having them just be your running shoe. Storage, are you storing them outside in the elements? Are you storing them in your garage? Are you storing them inside? It's all going to be a little different. In the time of year, we'll play into this a little bit. Like my shoes are in the garage right now. It's not super hot. They're fine. They're out of the elements. If it tends to get super hot in there, that might wear your shoes down a bit more. I still keep mine in the garage because they're nasty. I'm not bringing them inside my house. The running surface that you consistently are running on is going to matter also. So here we have a lot of asphalt. We have a lot of concrete that we run on. That's going to wear them down a bit faster than if we're on a soft surface or a trail. A lot of the times, or like the treadmill. You're not going to wear out the tread on the bottom quite as quickly. Your specific running build. So just depending on how much you weigh, the heavier that you weigh, the faster you might go through shoes. And then running style. So if you tend to scrape your heel along the ground, if you tend to drag your feet, depending on how much ground reaction time that you're having, you might wear shoes down a bit more than if you're really light on your feet, you're really quick to bounce from one foot to the other. And then shoe quality. So if you're going with like a true running shoe brand with like, an Asics, a Brooks, a New Balance, even like a Nike, Adidas, and you're going with their running shoe models, they're all going to be very similar in quality. But if you go to like a Ross or a TJ Maxx and you pick up a, $40 pair of Asics just off the ground or off the rack, it's probably not going to last quite as long as a true running shoe. It's going to just have a little bit less quality to it. Okay, here's that heel to toe drop that I mentioned. So it's just giving you that visual again. So just make sure that you're checking this before you go get a new pair of shoes if you're getting something different. And honestly, even if you're getting the same shoe, but it's a new model or new season that's come out, sometimes it can change. And typically it only changes by like a 1 to 2 millimeters, but I would just check that just to make sure. I'm really protective of like my feet and my Achilles. So before every model comes out, I'm always looking. I wear the New Balance 1080, so I'm always looking at if that heel to toe drop changed at all, just to make sure that I'm in the same shoe that I was before and nothing's drastically changing about it. Okay, we're going to go over briefly some different types of running shoes. So an all-around running shoe is probably what most of us are wearing. It's engineered to be durable, comfortable, and versatile. Should make your feet feel good. They're right at home when you put them on. This is our most popular shoe that's sold in running stores and online. And we typically call them like our daily trainers or our training shoe. There is a new category of like super trainers, just that have a very similar technology to like the new super shoes that have come out. We'll get into racing shoes and like the carbon plates in them and everything else. But the stack heights essentially are getting bigger and bigger with a lot of these shoes. So there also are some trainers out there that have that much higher stack height that are starting to mimic more of that super shoe, just not having the plate in them. And a lot of you guys have probably realized if you've bought shoes over the last 5-10 years, how much higher that stack height is getting every season that new shoes come out. It's getting a bit ridiculous. It's like a platform. So then we have our stability running shoes. This is, set a lot between runners. So this is specifically designed to help runners who overpronate while running. And I have a graphic on the next slide that'll show you more visually what that overpronation means. But it's natural as we're running. If this is my foot, as we're running, that we strike the ground and we get a little bit of arch collapse just to absorb those forces as we hit the ground. But there is a point of overpronation. And so these shoes really help by having more foam in that midsole. Sometimes they'll have like a medial stack height, kind of here, a post here to help you prevent from coming across or collapsing in. There's some inserts that you can get that have like a little bit of arch support. Again, that medial post or that post towards the inside that can help with that overpronation. And there's varying amount of supports. They can be high cushion, they can be low cushion, and still be a stability shoe. So I made a note here that shoes can also be in multiple categories. So you could have an all-around running shoe that's also a stability shoe that you wear, you know, for all of your runs that are your normal trainer, but they give you a little bit more of that stability. So here's what I'm talking about with that, you know, supination and more of like that neutral, and then an overpronation here. So it's just trying to prevent that, you know, kind of rolling in of your arch. And then you can also supinate, which is when you're coming more towards that outside. All right, so we have fast running shoes. I would call these more like workout shoes. So these are for runners that are focusing on improving your speed. So they can be up-tempo trainers. I call them my workout shoes. They're typically lighter weight. They have responsive foams. Some of them have that plated technology in the midsole, so they have that carbon plate. And it might be that it's the same shoe as your racing shoe, but you're just only wearing it for your workouts and for training runs. And that's what I do a lot of times to make sure my feet are used to my racing shoe. Is my workouts that I do on Wednesday mornings, I wear that, you know, my racing shoe that I just use on Wednesdays for those runs. And they can be used for, you know, any type of speed work, track, road, hard surfaces. I wouldn't take it on like a trail, but this is to complement your all-around running shoe if it's something that you're interested in using for like speed work, but it would not be a shoe that you would want to wear all the time. They're just not made to withstand as many miles. They tend to be a little bit more expensive, so you're going to go through them quicker since they can't stand as many miles. And also it changes your run gait, and we'll get into this with the racing shoes and the carbon plates, but kind of they tend to have this rocker, this forward rocker that puts you up on your toes. If any of you guys have run in some of like the super shoes, the, you know, Nike with the 4% was the first one to come out with it. Now they have like the Vaporflies and Alpha Flies, but it puts you more on your toes. It kind of forces you to rock forward. There's a lot more cushion to it. So it does change your gait a little bit and not something that you want to be running in all the time. So we also have Max Cushion shoes. So these provide amazing protection about the impact of the ground. You want to focus on the quality of the cushion, not necessarily the amount. So just because it looks like it has a lot of cushion in there doesn't necessarily mean that cushion is quality or that cushion is going to work for you. So the cushion should be soft, protective, stable. A lot of these now technologies come so far. They used to feel so like clunky and big. Now they're really responsive. The foam's really lightweight. So this can be a really good option if you're looking for more of a max cushion shoe. You want to protect your feet. It's best for easy runs, recovery runs. It could also serve as the only shoe that you have with how responsive the foam is getting. The one thing I would say about max cushion shoes, and something like a Hoka is a perfect example of this. A lot of people really love Hoka, and it's very polarized. Then a lot of people really don't like Hoka. So with Hoka, it's so cushioned that if you think about if you're running on sand at the beach, that you're sinking into that sand, it's protecting you from hitting the ground really hard, but then you have to push to get out of that. So if you have any type of calf or Achilles issue, I don't think a max cushion shoe, and it's not just calling out Hoka, it's any max cushion shoe, would be the right shoe for you, because you do have to kind of rock out of that and use your calves a little bit more. So just something to keep in mind. A lot of people run in them, a lot of people love them, but just if you have any calf or Achilles issues or a history of that, I would be a little cautious with using these. Okay, then we have our racing shoe. These are saved for special occasions. So like mine, I really save for my really special races. For some of the local races around here, if I'm not targeting it as my A race, I'll wear my workout shoe, which is that same version. It's just a little bit more beat up. These typically tend to be the most innovative shoe technology. It has that forward rocker, it has that plate, and they are really designed to make you run as fast and efficient as possible. They're usually really lightweight. Have really responsive cushioning. They have very minimal like upper and outsole, like what the shoe is made out of on the top, because they want them to be as lightweight as possible. And then that carbon plate, like I said, kind of helps you propel forward as you're running. There are different types of these racing shoes. Some are going to be more suited for a shorter distance, like a 2-mile, 5K, 10K, and some are more suited for the long distance. If you've never run in these type of shoes, you're looking to get some type of racing shoe, something with a carbon plate or like a super shoe is their term now. I would recommend going with more of the long distance style if you're going between two of them, or if you see the description of these are more, you know, a 5K, 10K, even 15K shoe, and then we have our marathon shoe. I would go with the marathon shoe to start with, even if you're not training for a marathon, just because it tends to have more cushioning and will be more forgiving. The shorter the distance, the more they're going to scrape off kind of like the excess from the shoe to make it as light as possible. And if you're not used to that shoe to begin with a super shoe in the plate, and then we're taking a lot of the, other excess off and making it as light as possible, I think there's just a little unnecessary risk with that. And the longer distance shoes, I don't think are different enough that it's going to be a big issue. I mean, the shoes that I raced in the marathon last year were the same shoes that, my 5K PR is in. So I just use the same ones, but it is the marathon shoe. I wanted to touch on here trail shoes just because it's another type of shoe. They're built to withstand the elements of the trail. So they tend to have more lugs on the bottom. They have a more durable upper, which is what the top of the shoe is, what's called the upper, more tougher outsole. So just the whole outsole, everything the shoe is made of is just tougher because you're on the trails. It's uneven. There's rocks, there's roots, there's uneven surfaces. A lot of times they'll have more support kind of around the ankle to help you not roll your ankle when you're out there. So they tend to have a little bit more weight to them. But if you're looking to run on the trail or do any type of off-road ultra or some of these relay races, I would recommend getting a trail shoe for that if you're traveling out of Florida. In Florida, our trails are sugar sand and hard packed dirt mostly, so you'd be fine in, like an all-around everyday trainer. But if you're looking to go anywhere else, I would look at getting a trail shoe. And then that would be something you'd want to practice in ahead of time because it's going to be a little bit different than any of your other shoes that you're wearing. All right, here's 3 other types of racing shoes. I didn't think we needed to get into too much detail. I'm happy to if you guys want. But you have your walking shoes, which are just going to be made a little different. They're not going to have that forward rocker compared to the running shoes. You have track spikes and cross-country spikes. So you see these, if you're watching the Olympics, if you're watching any of the professional runners, if you go to a high school meet, they'll have these where it's a racing shoe. It's very, very lightweight, doesn't have nearly the upper amount of weight in the upper on top or the stack height on the bottom. And then there's literally spikes that you screw in that help to grip the track or the dirt for cross country. And those are just made a little differently depending on if they need to have a little bit sturdier, durable heel in the cross country spikes because you're outside, you're in the dirt, you're in the grass, versus you're on the track where the heel pretty much has nothing because you're up on your toes the whole time. I haven't worn spikes in, 15, 20 years. So I didn't think we had to go into too much depth on that. You want to really, if you're looking to do that and to race on the track, you want to really work towards that because also that heel to toe drop is really, really low. All right, here's a little bit more on shoe tech. I've touched on some of this, but you're looking at the carbon plate. And it's interesting because a lot of people when the super shoes came out thought the carbon plate is what was giving you that energy return and propelling you forward. And it's actually more the foam. The foam is so responsive that that's doing, most of that energy return compared to the carbon plate. The carbon plate does help, but the foam has come such a long way with technology that that's doing most of the work. They've increased the stack height is to 25 millimeters in races that are longer than 800 meters, which is a half mile. So that's why you're seeing the stack height so much higher in those racing shoes. They're able to pack more foam in there. The rules also have it that you can only have 1 carbon plate in there. The companies can't start stacking 3 carbon plates inside there with the foam. You have this increased energy return, so that's what's going to help you run faster, get less fatigue. Now that they've been out for several years, we're seeing this faster recovery also because of having that foam, because there's, a little bit more cushion in there. The old racing shoes used to be pretty much as light as possible. There wasn't that much support in there. And so you were feeling all of the, ground contact, all of those forces with every step you were running. And it would leave runners a lot more sore after both workouts and races, especially the longer races. But now the recovery time's so much faster because you have that foam in there that people are able to recover quite a bit faster. And that's what's leading to these increase in performances also. It's not just the shoes, but it's your ability to work out harder and recover quicker and work out more and recover quicker and race more and recover quicker. So everything that makes a shoe, helps with that recovery. So initially there was a lot of research in why the Nike 4% were called the 4%, is that they were claiming there's a 4% increase in performance or 4% increase in energy return compared to other shoes. This is a wide range. Some people will get 1 to 2%. Some people will get 6%, just depending on your run style and how you run. There are different types of shoes. And if you're looking to get, some type of super shoe or racing shoe, I'm happy to talk to you about this more, but there's several companies that depending on when you increase speed, you increase it by increasing your stride length, which is, how big of a step that you're taking when you're running, versus increasing your cadence or how many steps you take a minute. they claim there's different shoes that will help different styles of runs. So if you're looking to get into those, I'm happy to answer those questions. But you might get, a 1% return in one shoe, a 3% return in the other. Unless you're in a lab, you're not really going to know. But I would say overall, they are faster than the old racing shoe and then a regular set of trainers. I always like to highlight there's a lot of other ways to increase your performance. The shoes get a lot of talk, and of course, because they're easy. You put on a pair of shoes, it's not going out and doing mile repeats, you're not doing extra workouts to get those performance benefits. But by strength training, I mean, research has shown that just by adding strength training in twice a week, specific to runners and not going too heavy, you can get a 4 to 8% increase in your performance. Making sure you're recovering, making sure you're sleeping enough, making sure you're eating. These are all things that you can control that will also give you, a minimum of that 4% and probably a lot more if you're, bridging those gaps between some other things. So it's not all in the shoes. Make sure you're covering all of your other bases to increase your performance. And it does, like I mentioned, change your foot strike and your running style a little bit. So you just want to be mindful if you're getting these shoes for the first time that you want to very much ease into them. I would go for like an easy run and like a mile of a run where I'm in, make sure they're okay. You're not getting any weird aches and pains around your ankle, around your hips, your knees, working its way up before you start doing workouts and other things in there. I had a pair of shoes several years ago that I wore for like 2 miles in the middle of my easy run. And the next day, like the inside of my arch, like the tendon that goes down there, was really flared up, and I've never put them on. Actually, I have put them on. I use them as my aqua jogging shoes in the pool now. So that was a little bit of a waste of money on some super shoes that now they get soaked in the chlorine, but I'm not going to run in them again because they flared up. And if I would have done a workout in them, it would have been much worse. So make sure you're easing yourself into these shoes. And then even if you've worn them before, do a couple workouts in them before you race in them if that's something that you're interested in. All right, so that's it with shoes. I want to go over the workouts of the week for both the spring camp and the Run Like a Girl camp, and then I'll open it up to questions. So for the spring camp, tomorrow at 6 p.m., we're going to be at the Eau Gallie Library. So we're going to be heading to the Eau Gallie Causeway. We're going to be doing 30-second efforts up the hill. For those of you that have joined us in camp before, we're going to be doing it the same way we've done it before, where I will break you up and probably pair some of the pace groups together, and you will have your 30-second segment of the bridge. So you might have one segment. I don't remember all the colors, but let's say green's at the bottom, and then we have yellow, and then we have teal, and you guys will stay on your 30-second segment, and we'll have some people over on the other side to try to break you guys up as much since we do have a large camp. You're going to go strong up for those 30 seconds. It's pretty quick because it's only 30 seconds. You're going to turn around. Your recovery is back to where you started. The pacers will chalk off where you're going to start and stop, so you'll start and end at the same spot, which is why I also did not program it into your watch. I don't care if you're hitting lap every time, you just leave your clock running. It makes no difference to me. It would kind of drive me nuts to keep hitting it after every like 30 seconds to 45 seconds, but completely up to you if you want to lap it. That's personal preference. You'll come easy back down, you'll go again. Try to trade off who's leading so the same person isn't leading the entire time. You'll do 10 of those. You'll take an extra 2 minutes rest so you can jog around. You can walk, you can I'd prefer you not to stand. I prefer you to keep moving. Definitely don't sit down. You got 2 minutes, and then we're going to do 10 more of those. So this is a really fun workout on the bridge. Then we have goo night. So we have samples of the goo gels that we'll have out for everybody. When you're done, you can come get those. And then this Sunday, we will be at the Eau Gallie boat ramp. So you get double dose of the bridge this week with Eye of the Dragon coming up. So we're going to do our long run from the Eau Gallie boat ramp. So that's going to be just to the east of the bridge. So some of you guys might not see it tomorrow night, but we'll park there in that dirt parking lot. There's one porta potty, and then there will be bathrooms at the library. We're going to go kind of back and forth over the bridge. So just plan accordingly for that. We'll have you guys go to Pineapple, which is that light that will that you would turn on to go to the library. That will be at tomorrow. So you can go there or all the way up to US 1. Just be careful crossing the street. And then we'll go down to Riverside, to the bank, to the Chase Bank there. And we'll go back and forth depending on how many miles you have. I'll have water, Gatorade and everything set up there at the dirt parking lot. And these are just aerobic, easy hills. So we're not looking to have these be a really strong effort. We're not sprinting up them, anything like that. Just trying to get more hills in, since I know a lot of you guys are racing Eye of the Dragon. And even if you're not, this will help build a lot of that running strength moving forward. For Run Like a Girl Camp, you are on Wednesday this week at 6 p.m. You're meeting at the Viera Kohl's. So you can park in that Kohl's parking lot. There's a really nice path that goes around a pond back there. So that's where you'll be doing your workout and meeting Coach Mandy. Your workouts are built into Final Surge. You have 3 by 3 minutes at threshold, 3 by 2 minutes at interval pace, and then 3 by 1 minute at repetition pace. You have 1 minute easy between everything. Those are all built in to Final Surge. So if you have your watch connected, that should automatically sync and upload to your watch with your paces specific to you. Everybody should have their paces and pace groups in Final Surge. If you don't, please let me know. I must not be able to find your 2-mile time trial or recent 5K results, or a couple of you guys, I looked and couldn't find it, and it was right there in front of me. So my apologies for that. But if you have those paces in, I put your threshold pace into your profile. If you have questions about what those paces mean, go back and watch the Coffee with Coach from last week, where I go over what all those paces mean, why we do those different paces, etc. And for Run Like a Girl, you guys have element night this week. And then your long run will also be from the Ogali boat ramp. You'll just start at 7 a.m. instead of 6 a.m. on Sunday. All right. Do we have any questions about literally anything? Shoes, camp, running, anything I can help with? Yeah, Gina.
Hey, so I have a foot question for you.
Yeah.
Any advice with dealing with runner's toe?
With runner's toe. Can you explain to me what's going on? There's a lot of different people call it different things.
Oh, do they? Okay. Like specifically just with the toenail and the bruising of the toenail.
Okay. So I would say my first suggestion would be to go a half size up in your shoes, because it might be rubbing along the top of your shoes there. You could also go with a wide, which is going to give you more room at the toe box. A lot of the shoes have started to have this narrow toe box. So even if your foot's not wide, getting a wide shoe can really help give you more toe box space. And honestly, I started staying in a wide when I was pregnant with my boys. My feet tended to kind of spread a little bit more, and I went into a wide, and they were so much more comfortable that I never went back. Like, my feet kind of went back, but they give me a lot more space in there. So I would try either a wide or a half size bigger. They do also make, I actually think I have them here. Hold on, I'll show you.
Okay.
They're like these little silicone caps that you can put on the top of your toes. I have them in here because I'm going to give them to my training buddy, Danielle, and I keep forgetting to give them to her. Hold on 1 second. So they're literally like these little silicone caps, and you can get these like Amazon, CVS, I believe like Walmart has them. But you could put that on like your toe, so it's like on my finger.
Oh, cool.
And that'll protect the front of your toe also, because I had one toe that was really bothering me where I had lost the toenail, and this made a really big difference. I thought it was going to bug me having something in my shoe, but after like a minute of running, I didn't even notice it. So that's something you can look at also, is just these little toe covers.
Cool. I'll give that a try.
And they come in all type of sizes. You can cut it a little shorter if you don't want it as long, but they're really cheap.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
I have a question, Kathleen.
Yeah.
Okay, about the shoes that we wear. So besides the tracking it, sometimes I also, when I feel like I'm feeling a little bit achy or anything, even though the shoe hasn't reached to the mile what's supposed to be, normally I change. Am I doing the right thing with this, or?
Yeah, absolutely. If you start to feel like your feet are aching, or your shoes are just really giving you problems in different things, I would definitely change your shoes. Sometimes you can look too at the bottom of your shoes, and again, these aren't great because they're like the on casual shoes. If you see like a certain spot's really worn down, a lot of times, because we have a running style we do with every run, that our shoes tend to have the same wear pattern. If you see that it's like super flat and you can't see the ridges anymore and it's really worn down, that would be another reason to switch the shoes. And it might be before, that 300, 400 miles. So no, you're definitely doing the right thing. If you start to feel aches, and especially in your feet and lower legs, I would switch shoes. I'm also just a big proponent of, running shoes are getting more expensive, but relatively they don't cost a ton. And maybe it's because I'm coming from like even a triathlon, background where bikes cost so much. But I would so much rather just change my shoes out, even if I'm like, I don't know, I could probably do another week in these shoes, because it's not worth it to me to have my feet hurt or to be taken out from running and my mental health.
Right. I mean, it's not worth to get injured, right? That's the
Exactly.
idea.
That's my viewpoint too, that I'm not going to push it with my shoes at all when it's something I can control and switch. So if you feel achy, or you feel, a lot of times people will describe it as like, my shoes feel dead, then I would absolutely switch them.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Any other questions? All right, awesome. Well, thanks for joining, guys. I'll see most of you guys Tuesday. For those of you that are in Run Like a Girl camp, I'll see you guys Sunday as we're going back and forth over the bridge. I'll hang on for a couple more minutes if anybody thinks of any other questions. Otherwise, enjoy the rest of your afternoon, and thanks for joining me.